You are not welcome in the ballroom. Stay in the kitchen or we pull the funding. That was the text my father sent me 1 minute before his grand entrance. I looked down at the scratchy maid's uniform he forced me to wear so I would not embarrass the family. I did not cry. I just looked at the security camera and smiled. I pressed my earpiece. Execute Protocol 9. Instantly, the magnetic locks on the ballroom doors slammed shut. The lights cut out. The trap was set. Before I tell you exactly what happened when the lights went out and how my father realized he had just signed his own arrest warrant, drop a comment and let me know where you are listening from and what time it is for you. Right? Now. I want to see how far this story travels. The darkness in the hallway was not an accident. It was a feature. When I designed the obsidian, I programmed the emergency protocols myself. I knew exactly which circuits would cut and which doors would lock. My family thought I was trapped in the service pantry, invisible and powerless. They did not realize that in this building, I was God. My name is Madison Grant. I am 30 years old, and I am the owner and lead architect of this hotel. But tonight, to the 300 guests inside that ballroom, I was nobody. I was staff. I was the help. The lie had started 6 months ago. My sister, Jasmine, had gotten engaged to Matthew Sterling, the son of a billionaire tech investor. It was not enough for Jasmine to marry rich. She wanted to be rich. She wanted to be impressive. So, my father, Drake, spun a story. He told the Sterlings that Jasmine was not just a pretty face, she was a visionary. He told them she had designed the obsidian. He told them she was the silent genius behind Manhattan's most exclusive boutique hotel. It worked. Mr. Sterling was so impressed by his future daughter-in-law's portfolio that he wrote Drake a check for $250,000. Seed money, he called it. He thought he was investing in Jasmine's next project. In reality, he was funding Drake's gambling debts and a wedding they could not afford. To make the con work, I had to disappear. They could not have the real architect walking around answering questions, so they gave me a choice. Sign a non-disclosure agreement and play the role of head of housekeeping for the night, or they would destroy my reputation. Drake threatened to sue me for a loan he had co-signed years ago, claiming I had defrauded him. It was a bluff, but a messy one. I signed the NDA, but I also made Drake sign my contract. Earlier that afternoon, my mother, Dora, had come into the staff locker room to inspect me. She had not hugged me. She had not thanked me for letting them use my venue. She had picked up a lint roller and aggressively ran it over the shoulders of my cheap, polyester uniform. There, she had said, her voice dripping with a poisonous kind of sweetness. You finally look like you belong, Madison. Do not speak to Mr. Sterling tonight. Do not look at Matthew. You are the help. Do not ruin your sister's big win with your jealousy. I had looked at her, and for a second, I felt the old sting, the ache of being the daughter who was never enough. But then I looked at Jasmine, preening in the mirror, practicing the speech she would give about her design philosophy. That is when I realized something. Jasmine did not just want my hotel. She wanted my brain. Narcissists do not just steal objects. They steal traits. Putting me in a uniform was not just about service. It was about visual castration. She needed to strip me of my identity so she could wear it like a costume. She wanted to consume me. Dora thought she was putting me in my place. She did not understand that by forcing me into the shadows, she had given me the perfect vantage point. I was not jealous. I was patient. And as I stood in the dark pantry, listening to the confusion rising on the other side of the door, I knew my patience had just run out. The muffled chatter outside turned into a low rumble of confusion. Then, the pounding started. Polite knocks at first, then angry fists against the mahogany. I checked my watch. Protocol 9 had been active for exactly 2 minutes, right on schedule. The service door to the pantry flew open so hard it cracked against the wall. Drake stormed in, his face a mask of purple rage, with Dora right on his heels clutching her pearls like they were life preservers. They did not look at me like a daughter. They looked at me like a broken appliance that needed to be kicked. What did you do? Drake did not ask. He spat the words. He crossed the small room in 2 strides and grabbed my upper arm, his fingers digging into the muscle through the cheap fabric of my uniform. The doors will not open. The lights are out. Mr. Sterling is standing there in the dark. Fix it. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then up at his eyes. I cannot simply fix it, sir. The system has initiated a lockdown. I do not care what the system initiated. He shouted, shaking me. You are the head of housekeeping. You are supposed to handle the logistics. Go out there and pry them open if you have to. Dora pushed past him, her voice a frantic hiss. Do you have any idea how this looks? Jasmine is crying in the limousine. Matthew's father is asking if we paid the electric bill. You are humiliating us, Madison. On purpose. I am just the help, remember? I said, keeping my voice flat. I do not have the authority to override a security lockdown. Then find someone who does, Drake roared. He leaned in close, the smell of expensive scotch and desperation on his breath. Listen to me, you ungrateful little brat. If those doors do not open in 60 seconds, I will make sure you never work in this city again. I will call every hotel manager in Manhattan and tell them you are a thief. I will tell them you are unstable. I will bury you so deep you will be lucky to scrub toilets in Jersey. It was a fascinating display of power dynamics. Here was a man who had forged my signature, stolen my intellectual property, and erased my existence, threatening to destroy a career I did not even have. He truly believed the lie. He believed I was just a mid-level employee he could crush with a phone call. He did not realize he was standing in the belly of a beast I had built bone by bone. You would destroy my reputation? I asked, testing the waters. I will ruin you, he promised, tightening his grip until it hurt. I made you, and I can break you. Now open the damn doors. Dora nodded in agreement, her eyes cold. Do as your father says, Madison. Stop being dramatic. We are paying you to work, not to think. They were so sure of their leverage. They thought they held the keys to my survival, because they still saw me as the desperate girl who needed their approval. They did not see the tablet in my hand, or the biometric scanner on the wall behind me. They did not see the predator. They only saw the prey. I pulled my arm free from his grasp with a sharp jerk. The movement surprised him enough that he stumbled back a step. I straightened my apron, brushed the imaginary lint off my shoulder where he had touched me, and let the mask slip just a fraction. Actually, I said, my voice dropping an octave, losing the subservient tone of the maid, and adopting the steel of the CEO. I think we need to talk about the bill. The bill? Drake blinked, the red flush on his neck deepening. He laughed, a short, barking sound that held zero humor. You stopped the wedding because you are worried about a bill? I told you. I will handle the financials next week. Now open the doors. That is not how this works, I said, reaching behind a stack of napkins on the shelf and pulling out a slim, high-end tablet. I tapped the screen, bringing up a document with a digital signature at the bottom. His signature, according to the venue rental agreement for the Obsidian, specifically Clause 14, subsection B. All outstanding balances must be settled in full prior to the commencement of the event. Failure to remit payment results in an immediate suspension of services. I turned the screen toward him. The number $85,000 glowed in red, indicating overdue. You paid the deposit, I continued. My tone clipped and professional, stripped of any familial warmth. But the catering, the security, the audio-visual package, and the venue fee are outstanding. The total is $85,000. The system is automated, Drake. It will not unlock the doors until the balance reads 0. Dora gasped, her hand flying to her chest. You are doing this now? With Matthew's parents standing 10 feet away? This is blackmail, Madison. It is a contract, I corrected. You signed it. You agreed to the terms. You just did not think you would have to follow them because you thought you owned the help. Drake narrowed his eyes, stepping closer again, trying to use his physical size to intimidate me. It was a tactic that had worked when I was 12. It did not work on a woman who negotiated with unions and city inspectors for a living. I do not have time for your little power trip. I will write you a check on Monday. We are family. You know I am good for it. I know you are not good for it, I said. I know your construction firm has been in the red for 18 months. I know you have 3 maxed-out credit cards and a lien on the house in Connecticut. And I know the only reason you are throwing this wedding is to convince Mr. Sterling to write you another check. His face went slack. The bully vanished, replaced by a frightened man who realized his victim had been taking notes. So, no, I said. No checks. No Monday. The payment terminal is right here. I tapped the card reader attached to the tablet. Credit or debit. Immediate transfer. We do not have that kind of limit on our personal cards, Dora hissed, looking frantically at the closed door. You know that. Then I guess Jasmine isn't getting married here. I moved to put the tablet away. Wait! Drake lunged, blocking me. He looked toward the service door's small window. Through the reinforced glass, we could see the hallway. The guests were getting restless. Mr. Sterling, a man whose time was worth $1,000 a minute, was checking his watch. He looked annoyed. He is watching, Drake, I whispered, leaning in. Mr. Sterling is wondering why a man who claims to be a successful developer cannot even get the doors open. How long before he starts asking questions? How long before he asks to see your portfolio? Drake looked at me, and for the first time, I saw genuine fear. He was not looking at his daughter anymore. He was looking at a creditor. You are enjoying this, he snarled. I am executing a transaction, I said, cold as ice. Client 409. You are in breach. Pay the bill, or the doors stay locked. Decide. Drake's eyes darted to the small window again. Mr. Sterling had moved closer to the glass, peering into the dim service corridor with a frown that could curdle milk. The billionaire investor was not just impatient. He was suspicious. And suspicion was the one thing a con man like my father could not afford. I do not have the corporate card on me. Drake lied. Sweat beading on his forehead, despite the air conditioning. It is in the car. No, it is not, I said softly. It is in your left jacket pocket. I saw you checking it when you walked in. You always pat your pocket when you are nervous. He froze. $85,000, Drake, I whispered, leaning in so only he could hear. Think about the math. If you pay me, you lose some cash you were not supposed to spend. But if you do not pay me, the doors stay locked. Mr. Sterling asks why. He finds out you cannot cover the venue fee. He starts wondering what happened to that $250,000 seed round he wired you last week. And then, he pulls the funding. The wedding is cancelled. Your company is exposed. And you go to prison for fraud. Is that worth saving 85 grand? It was the sunk cost fallacy weaponized. He had already invested too much in the lie to turn back now. He looked at me with pure, unadulterated hatred, the kind of look you give someone who has seen you naked and knows you are ugly. You are evil, he hissed. I am accounting, I replied. Swipe the card. His hand went to his pocket. He pulled out a sleek, matte black card. I recognized the logo immediately. It was issued to Nexus Ventures, the shell company he had set up to launder Mr. Sterling's investment. He was about to pay for a wedding with money legally designated for software development. He swiped the card through the reader on my tablet with a violent, slashing motion, as if he were trying to cut me with it. There, he spat, his face inches from mine. You got your money, you greedy little rat. Are you happy? You just stole my operating capital. He did not get it. And that is the thing about narcissists, they have a fatal blind spot. They believe they are the main character in every story, the exception to every rule. Drake did not see a transaction log or a digital paper trail. He just saw an obstacle. He thought that by paying the money, he had won. He thought he had silenced me. He did not realize that in the digital world, money talks louder than threats. I looked down at the tablet. The screen flashed. Authorizing. While the little wheel spun, I tapped a small, inconspicuous checkbox at the bottom of the merchant interface. Send digital receipt to board of directors. It was a feature I had installed for corporate clients who needed instant expense reporting. But Drake, in his arrogance, had listed Mr. Sterling as a silent board member on the shell company's registration to make it look legitimate. He thought it was just a title on a PDF. He did not realize that my system automatically scraped the corporate registry for email contacts attached to the EIN. The screen turned green. Approved. The receipt did not just go to Drake. It went to the cloud. It went to the IRS logs. And, at the speed of light, it went to the inbox of the man standing 10 feet away. Transaction complete, I said, my voice void of triumph. Pleasure doing business with you. Drake snatched his card back. Open the doors. And if you say one word to Sterling, I will kill you. I do not need to say a word, I said, putting the tablet away. The doors are unlocking now. He smoothed his suit jacket, fixed his tie, and transformed instantly from a cornered animal back into the jovial father of the bride. He pushed open the service door and strode into the hallway, arms wide, greeting the guests with a booming laugh. Apologies, everyone. Just a minor technical glitch with the lighting system. All sorted out. Shall we? The guests cheered. Dora shot me one last withered glare before following him. They thought they had survived. They thought the crisis was over. I waited in the shadows of the pantry for a count of 10. Then, I walked over to the main control panel on the wall. They had paid for the room. Now, they were going to get the show. The ballroom doors glided open, and the guests flooded in. Relieved and chatty, completely unaware they were walking into a crime scene. I stayed in the service shadows, watching the performance begin. Jasmine did not just enter the room, she invaded it. She swept onto the stage in her custom gown, grabbing the microphone with the practiced ease of someone who had rehearsed this moment in front of a mirror for months. Behind her, the massive, 30-foot LED wall flickered to life. It displayed a slideshow of her sketches crude. Crayon-level drawings she had likely paid a freelancer on Fiverr to mock up last week. Welcome to the Obsidian, Jasmine announced, her voice trembling with faux humility. She looked out at the sea of faces, locking eyes with Matthew's parents in the front row. When I designed this space, I wanted to create something that felt like home. Every archway, every light fixture, it all came from my heart. I poured my soul into these walls. Dora was dabbing her eyes in the front row. Drake was puffing his chest out, the proud father of a genius. Matthew looked at his bride with total adoration, completely sold on the lie that he was marrying a prodigy. It was a masterclass in identity theft. She had not just stolen my credit. She was erasing me from my own creation in real time. I leaned casually against the back wall near the kitchen swing doors. Next to my head was a small, beige plastic panel. To the uninitiated, it looked like a thermostat or a light switch cover. A small label read, "Maintenance only." I flipped the cover open. Underneath was not a switch, but a black glass square, a biometric scanner hardwired into the building's central nervous system. I had installed these throughout the hotel for high-level overrides, a failsafe in case the network went down. It bypassed the scheduled programming. It bypassed the event manager's tablet. It bypassed everything. On stage, Jasmine was pointing to the vaulted ceiling. "I fought the contractors for months to get these beams exactly right," she lied. "But I knew my vision was worth it." "Your vision," I whispered. I pressed my right palm flat against the cold glass of the scanner. A soft blue light pulsed under my hand. The haptic feedback buzzed against my skin. On the tiny digital readout above the scanner, text scrolled across. Biometric match confirmed. "Welcome. Architect Grant. Access level. Owner." I tapped the command I had queued up hours ago. Display source, files, root. On stage, Jasmine froze. The soft romantic playlist cut out with a sharp static hiss. The lighting rig shifted from a warm amber glow to a stark, interrogating white. A collective gasp ripped through the room. Behind Jasmine, the slideshow of her fake sketches vanished. In their place, high-resolution digital scans exploded onto the 30-foot screen. They were crisp, undeniable, and devastating. Slide 1. The original 2019 architectural blueprints, stamped by the city. In the bottom right corner, in bold block letters, lead architect, Madison Grant. Slide 2. The deed of trust for the property located at 409 West 14th Street. Owner of record, Madison Grant. Slide 3. A scanned email from Drake to me, dated 3 years ago, calling my hotel idea a waste of an inheritance and refusing to invest a single cent. Jasmine turned around, her veil catching on the microphone stand. She stared up at the screen, her mouth opening and closing like a fish on a dock. She looked for the tech guy to yell at, but the DJ booth was dark. The system had locked them out. "What is this?" Matthew stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Jasmine, what is that?" Then, the final command executed. The overhead house lights dropped to black. A single, high-intensity spotlight swiveled from the center of the room, cutting through the darkness, and landed squarely on the back wall. On me. I stood there in my maid's uniform, my hands clasped behind my back, looking every bit the servant they wanted me to be except for the terrified silence that now surrounded me. "That," I said, my voice projecting clearly through the room's PA system, which had auto-activated with the spotlight, "is the difference between a vision and a lie." Jasmine looked at me. Drake looked at me. 300 guests turned in their chairs to look at the help. The maid was not serving drinks anymore. The maid was holding court. Drake did not look at the blueprints on the screen. He did not look at the deed or the permits that proved his entire narrative was a lie. He looked at me, and he did not see a CEO. He saw a target. The narcissist's rage is a specific, ugly thing. It overrides self-preservation. A smart man would have run. A smart man would have tried to spin a new lie. But Drake was not smart. He was cornered. "You hacked the system!" he screamed, his voice cracking, veins bulging in his neck. He shoved past a waiter, knocking a tray of champagne glasses to the floor with a deafening crash. "She is lying. She is a thief." He charged toward the back of the room, his fists clenched, intent on physical violence. He was going to hit me. He was going to punish me for being smarter than him. I did not flinch. I did not even raise my hands to defend myself. I did not have to. Just as Drake reached the edge of the parquet floor, a hand shot out and clamped onto his wrist like a steel vice. It was not hotel security. It was not Matthew. It was Mr. Sterling. The billionaire investor did not look angry. He looked bored, which was infinitely worse. He twisted Drake's arm, forcing my father to stumble to a halt, then shoved him back hard enough that Drake nearly fell into the chocolate fountain. "That is enough, Drake," Mr. Sterling said, his voice low but carrying effortlessly in the silent room. "She is sabotaging the wedding," Drake panted, pointing a shaking finger at me. "She is insane. I am going to have her arrested." "No," Sterling said calmly. "You are not." He reached into his tuxedo pocket and pulled out his phone. The screen was glowing. He turned it so Drake could see. "I just received a fascinating notification from my finance team," Sterling said. "Apparently, a transaction just cleared on the corporate card issued to Nexus Ventures. $85,000. The merchant is listed as the Obsidian Hotel, Event Services. Drake's face drained of color. He looked like a man who had just realized the parachute was not opening. It must be a mistake. Drake stammered, the fight draining out of him instantly. A glitch. I will call the bank on Monday. It is an error. It is not an error, Drake. Sterling cut him off, his eyes cold and predatory. It is a receipt. And since Nexus Ventures is a software startup I funded with $250,000 of seed capital, explicitly designated for development and research, using it to pay for a wedding venue is not a glitch. Sterling took a step forward, invading Drake's personal space. It is wire fraud. It is embezzlement. And since the amount exceeds $50,000, it is grand larceny. The room was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning hum. Dora let out a small, strangled whimper from the front row. Jasmine had sunk into a chair, burying her face in her hands, her fairy tale dissolving into a felony. Please, Drake whispered, his voice trembling. Arthur, we can fix this. I will pay it back. It was a temporary loan. Just a bridge loan. I am not a bank, Drake, Sterling said. He did not look at Drake anymore. He looked at his own personal security detail standing at the perimeter of the room. He gave a subtle nod. And I do not lend money to con artists who lie about their daughters to solicit funds. Two large men in dark suits moved in. They were not police, but they were effective. They grabbed Drake by the arms, immobilizing him. I have already alerted the district attorney, Sterling said, checking his watch. My legal team is filing the complaint now. The police are 5 minutes out. I suggest you do not resist. Drake slumped, his legs giving out. The arrogance, the bluster, the cruelty, it all evaporated, leaving behind a small, terrified man who had gambled everything on a lie and rolled snake eyes. I watched from the shadows of the service wall. I had not said a word. I had not thrown a punch. I had not called the cops. I had simply forced him to swipe a card, and the truth had done the rest. The flashing lights of the police cruisers did not look festive against the glass facade of the obsidian. They looked like an ending. The officers did not make a scene. They did not have to. Mr. Sterling's security team had already done the heavy lifting. Drake did not fight as they read him his rights and clicked the cuffs onto his wrists. He just looked at me, his eyes hollow, finally understanding that the daughter he had dismissed as a servant was the architect of his demise. Dora did not go quietly. She screamed. You did this, she wailed, her mascara running down her face in jagged black lines. She pointed a shaking finger at me where I stood by the service door. You ruined your sister's life. You jealous, hateful girl. How could you? I did not answer. I did not need to defend myself against a woman who had measured my worth by how well I could disappear. Jasmine was clinging to Matthew's arm, her knuckles white. Matt, please, she sobbed, the tears real. Now that the money was gone, I did not know. Daddy told me it was an investment. I just wanted everything to be perfect for us. Matthew looked at her. Then he looked at the screen behind her, still displaying the deed with my name on it. He looked at his father, who was giving a statement to a detective. Slowly, deliberately, Matthew reached for his left wrist. He unclasped the heavy platinum watch Jasmine had given him as a wedding gift, a watch I now knew was bought with the initial deposit of stolen seed money. He dropped it onto the table. The heavy thud echoed in the silence. My lawyers will be in touch about the engagement ring, he said, his voice void of emotion. Do not leave the city, Jasmine. He walked over to his father, and together, they left the hotel without looking back. I watched them all go. The police took Drake. Dora chased after the squad car. Jasmine sat alone on the edge of the stage, a bride without a groom, surrounded by the high-definition proof of her own fraud. I turned and walked up the service stairs to my office on the mezzanine level. I poured a glass of water and stepped out onto the balcony, looking down at the emptying street. There is a concept in strategy called the clean hands doctrine. It means that you do not have to get in the mud to win a fight. You do not have to scream, or throw punches, or commit crimes. You just have to create an environment where the truth can breathe, and let your enemies suffocate on their own lies. I had not called the police. I had not contacted Mr. Sterling. I had not ruined the wedding. I had simply asked for payment for a service rendered. Drake was the one who chose to pay with stolen money. Jasmine was the one who chose to build a marriage on identity theft. They had jumped off the cliff. I just refused to be the cushion that broke their fall. I pulled out my phone. I opened my contacts list. I scrolled to Dad. Delete. Mom. Delete. Jasmine. Delete. Then, I opened the building management app. Biometric database. I selected their profiles. Purge. The system flashed green. Access revoked. I took a sip of water. The silence in the hotel was beautiful. I did not lose a family that night. I lost a liability. If you have ever had to cut off toxic family to save yourself, hit that like button and share this story. Let us remind the world that sometimes, the best revenge is simply letting the truth do the work.